Yo, what's up? I couldn't help myself. Hi guys. I'm gonna use the Mama Elephant Reindeer little agendas today, along with some more of their dies. I'm gonna use kind of elements from those die sets, and we're gonna create a wiper card. Now, I did my own math on this, so it's not perfect. But from the Slimline Present, I think that's what it's called. I've got a few elements there. I've die cut them, but I've left them in the cardstock. And I've also die cut a couple of the little tags that come with this particular die set. It's a Slimline die set. I have done a video on that somewhere. I also have taken the Slimline or Slim window dressing just for the grass border. It was the only grassy border type thing that I had of Mama Elephants, so I thought we'd use it on this card today. So I am going to go through the measurements of this. I did some math, which is not my strong suit. So this measurement is 5 3/4, and I will show you on the board here, by 5 1/2. I wanted it to be an A2 kind of size, so I did some maths on that. And so you need two pieces that are 5 3/4 by 5 1/2, which I'm going to show you here. This is my little cheat sheet. And then you will need one piece that is 3/4 of an inch by 3 3/4. Now that size you'll see later on that we will adjust some of that anyway, and you sometimes have to make these things work. So on the 3/4 of an inch side, you're going to score. On the right hand side, you're going to score at 4 1/4, so that gives you your standard A2 size section, and at 5 inches on both pieces. And this is what's going to create your valley and your mountain folds. Then on the second piece, again, you're going to score at 4 on the 5 3/4 inch side. You're going to score at 4 1/4 and at 5 inches. So again, you're doing two pieces exactly the same size, scored at exactly the same parts. Then on your 1 3/4, your 3/4 of an inch piece, you're going to make a notch at 3/4 of an inch on the long side, and then I found it easier to flip that over and then make another notch in your paper or mark it with a pencil at 1 1/2. And what you're going to do is you're going to line up the corner of that piece, and hopefully you'll be able to see the score lines on here, with your first notch. So you're going from that corner to the first notch and score it, and then you will flip the cardstock so that where you've just scored up to, you're going to then score to your second notch. So you create almost like a triangular shape there. And then you're going to fold those pieces on those score lines. And you'll see that in a second. And you're going to fold those and fold them towards each other so that you'll end up with what you want is this sort of shape. So you've got like this arm, if you like, and this triangle head at the end of it. I actually, for this particular card, I actually needed to fold it the other way, and you'll see why in a minute. So my mechanism was just facing the wrong way, that's all. But once you get the hang of the act, like how to put it together, you can fold your piece of paper, and you'll know when it needs to be folded the opposite way. Also, what I want to say about this is that, so that's the shape that you'll need. And that tiny little triangle on the end, you'll see later on, is the only part that's going to actually attach to the inside of the card. What I will say is I've used 3/4 of an inch as a guide. I will amend as I go the mechanism, the little handle arrow. But make make it work for you. I wouldn't go smaller than 3/4 of an inch on the channels, if you like. So what I was showing you there is that one piece is going to have the score lines on the right hand side, and one is going to have them on the left hand side. So the piece that you've got with your score lines on the left hand side, you're going to make a measurement 2 3/4 of the way up, and that's where you want to cut, or in my case I used a grassy border die. That's just a nice height to hide your mechanism behind, especially if you've also got a slightly larger image that you want to attach to it to pop out. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to ink everything up. So I'm going to start with, I'm using oxides today, and this cardstock is actually Bristol Smooth cardstock, which is beautiful with distress inks. Let's just say that if you don't know already. And what I'm doing is I'm using some speckled egg oxide ink, and I've made sure I know where my score lines are and for which piece, because obviously I need to know, I don't need to do the whole piece of cardstock, but this is going to be my sky, for want of better words. And then now that I've die cut my grass, which I'd obviously done off screen and before we started, I'm now using some ice spruce for my grassy area. It's got kind of a green tint, but it's a really nice colour for Christmas, I think. It's got that icy, sprucey kind of look, which is the name, I know, but it's got a nice green blue tone to it, but more on the green side for me. So now that I've got that done, I left those two pieces together just because it makes inking the edges of the grass a little easier, but it wasn't actually too bad. And I'm just going in to try and even out those that ink. So once I've done that, I'm just going to clean up this section. And then I'm going to ink the present that will go on the card. And I'm coming in with some selvage patina and some festive berries. I thought there'd be a nice colour combo, kind of all sort of tone on tone kind of thing, but with a bit of red. Going back to the card, like I say, the channels on either side to make your mountain and valley folds, I wouldn't go smaller than 3/4 of an inch if you're doing your own math on this. So which is what I did. 3/4 of an inch is a nice depth, but it's not too skinny. You could go maybe an inch and that would still look really, really good. So what I would do is, and there is a bit of math involved, but work out the size of the card once it's folded that you want. So for me it was an A2 size card because I love that size. And so on the height of it is 5.5, so that's fine. But the width to get the mountain and valley fold lines on the sides, I needed to extend that out. So if an inch works better for you, then do an inch. And just have start with a larger piece of cardstock. Not, but it's very easy. Once I got the hang of it and I understood the concept behind it, it's actually really easy to put one of these together without any dies. Although I will say that Mama Elephant and now Lawn Fawn have dies that will make it super easy. I just didn't have them on hand and I got overexcited and really wanted to do this. So hence why I made up my own one. So I spritzed all the pieces with some water just because I think it adds to it. I love a bit of spritz. So what we're going to do is, now that they're dry, because I've used my heat tool for that, we're going to fold one of them into a mountain and one into a valley. And you'll see this very first one, I folded the wrong way. You actually want the valley on the left and the mountain on the right. So yes, I'm folding it and burnishing it, but you'll see when you go to put this on the card, it's sticking up the wrong way. You need to attach that end section where that first fold line is. You need to be able to attach that to your card. So much better that way. So that is the valley that you want on the left hand side. The right hand side is where you'll put the mountain fold. Now, like I say, this is Bristol Smooth cardstock. It's quite thick, so It took a little bit, especially on this bigger panel, to get it to do what I wanted to do. That's not an issue. If you've got slightly thinner cardstock, it will work beautifully. So I love Bristol Smooth, so I decided to use it for this, and it's nice and sturdy, but it does take, I keep having to burnish it. So now you've got your mountain on the right hand side, and this is essentially your card, but when it folds, it will fold to your, in this case, an A2 size card. You can have it, like I say, any size you want. And I also went for a very basic mechanism for the inside, so you'll see that in a second. So what I want to do next is we're going to stick just on that first section where the first fold line is. That's where we're going to stick that down, and we're going to stick it in the bottom corner and onto the left hand side. So I'm using some red liner tape. You know I love this stuff because that backing just clings to everything. But it is good sticky tape, and for something that's going to be open and closed 1,000 times, it's good to use a good adhesive. Wet adhesive would work and is a strong bond, but just be aware that you don't want wet glue where you don't want it. You don't want to seal the thing shut. The same as when you're lining up your tape as well. So the bottom left of that first little section, scored section, is going to go onto the card, and then we're going to simply open it up before we stick the other side. So that's now stuck nicely. So you're going to open it kind of like a book, and in that center, the next channel, or that sort of next 3/4 inch section, is where the mechanism is going to go. So when we stick this down, the little triangle flap that we folded over is the only bit that's going to have adhesive on it, but this is how you're going to stick it in there. It'll line up, the bottom of the triangle, if you like, on the right hand side will line up with the edge of that score line that's stuck down, and then the top, you just don't want it peeking out of the top of the actual grassy border, or if that's a straight line. Now a couple things, and you'll see that in a bit, is that you probably want to ink this, the part of it that is actually going to pop out. Ink it the same color as your background if you haven't used colored cardstock. I did not think of that, so I had to make a plan and do it while it's stuck it in there. The other thing that I also didn't think about, but this is where it's nice that I can tell you guys what not to do, is that it was too wide for my little agenda dudes. So this is me showing you where to put this mechanism. The very tip of the triangle on the left hand side, I've actually just cut it because it was going to cause problems in that fold line, and so I just nipped it off, and honestly it works perfectly fine. So I'm just getting the adhesive off just on that tiny triangle, which is the bit tucked underneath where my right hand is, and lining it up with the score line on the left and the edge of the fold on the right. And you can see there, hopefully, that the little triangle is the only section that's actually glued or stuck to that section. So now when we sort of see what it'll be like once we stick the right hand side down, it pops up. Fabulous. Thank God it worked. Anyway, so at this point I still hadn't clocked that I needed to not only make that the wiper part, the bit that's going to pop out, needed to make it smaller. I also, or perhaps this is where I do it actually, I also realized it was the wrong color and I needed to ink it up. So I am kind of fiddling here because I had to work out not only how far down to cut, so I just kind of went down the center of it because that would be wide enough for the little agenda, but also how far down to go, because you don't want to lose the mechanism part of the mechanism, if that makes sense. You don't want to lose the whole mechanic of it. So I kind of worked out where that would be and then I will show you how I've cut it now. So I cut it, if I just open this up, I cut that little section out, and I didn't go quite as far down as the first triangle part of the score line, if that makes any sense. Like I say, if you buy the die sets, then it will already have done all this math for you and you don't have to worry about it. But this is me flying by the seat of my pants, trying to make this card for you guys. So now that I've worked that out, I was chuffed. So the right hand side, I decided to stick this down, and I again just kind of eyeballed but was careful where I put the adhesive on this left hand, the grassy border panel, because you don't want to come in above the grassy border for one, and you also don't want it to be wider than the the 3/4 inch channel on the right hand side, because again you don't want to stick your card together either. So just lining that up again with the bottom corner and the edge of the card, and hey presto, woohoo! And I did check that there's no adhesive sticking out inside the card as well, otherwise I would have had to have taken this thing apart. Anyway, so again I'm just burnishing all of it just to make sure the lines are nice and crisp so that everything moves nicely and the adhesive is adhered to the section. And there's my wiper that I am playing with like a child. So when I think it was at this point I was very happy that it actually worked. But I think it's at this point that I realized actually that wiper is the wrong color. So I grabbed my ink again and I just did some I don't know, I just kind of put some paper towel underneath, and I had to kind of bend the grass to get the ink to go as far down as I could behind that. So I did that off camera, but it just shows you now that it's the same color as the background. I didn't spritz it with water or anything like that. I just left it just inked, but at least it tones in better. But you can see at the bottom edge there's a bit of that mechanism still sticking out, so I could actually trim more of that off, and also the ink itself doesn't go far enough down, but I couldn't quite get in there. So that's just note to self, make sure you've inked it before you actually stick it, and you should be able to work out where that is, like how far down you need to ink before you actually stick the mechanism in. So for this next bit I'm going to speed through this a little bit, because if you've got this far with me, then thanks for staying. And it's a case of putting everything together now. I kept this very, very simple. One, because I'd never made one of these wiper cards before in my life, and because I didn't know if it was going to be a complete disaster. It turned out really cute, but I will say that actually for these wiper cards, they're depending on what you're doing. Like I love doing scene cards and scene building and that kind of stuff. I would say definitely have more elements to work with than you think you're going to need. I always say that, but for this one in particular, I wasn't actually sure whether it was going to work out. So I just grabbed a few bits that I had around me to use. And so this, although it is a little bit of a scene card, it's very, very plain for me. Yeah, but you could totally elaborate on all of these things. You could put tons more of these little agenda guys on there. These are the ones that I'd actually previously, for a different project, I'd actually stamped and I think I watercolored these a few years ago, and they've just been in the packaging. And this is where it's handy if you want to do something, a quick and easy card. It's nice to have things already pre-stamped and coloured and cut out and ready to go. Like I say, they've been in there for a few years, so I thought it was time they came out. So I stamped the greeting or the sentiment onto the tag of the little gift, or giant gift compared to the little reindeer, and so that I decided that was where the sentiment was going to go. But like I say, you could do a billion other things, right? You could add your sentiment to the top. I could have added extra in the sky, could have had a moon, a cloud, load of clouds. If it was I was thinking this was a winter daytime scene rather than a nighttime scene, but you'll see I'll add stars to it anyway. And then I just needed to decide where to put all my little guys. I decided to pop up the bow and the little the tag on the present, and I popped up a few of these little guys in the front here, and I thought the one standing on there is like purveying the lands. He's like checking everything out. He's making sure everybody's on the nice list. I nearly said naughty list, but and yeah, he's just checking things out. So I popped up a few of these guys on just with some shallow foam, so not too two-dimensional. And then the other two little guys, I put one behind the grass because I thought that was quite cute, and then the other one on the right, who's also looks like he's flying through the air, he's just on the edge of that channel part of the card, if that makes sense. By this point I also decided that this little guy was way too high up, so that's the other thing. Make your piece long enough to fit in the card, but also you don't forget you can chop it down and make it a little shorter if you need to, which is what I did here. And I then was much happier with this, because otherwise he just looks like he's flying at some ridiculous height when all he's supposed to be doing is jumping, not flying, so to speak. So I was much happier with that, and yes, I got a bit giddy and played with it quite a lot. So as a final little something in the background, I decided to use the Lucy's little cards. These are the itty bitty stars. These are the like mother of pearl iridescence. Oh my hat, I love these. I've used them on some other Halloween cards and anything like nighttime scenes, daytime scenes, whatever. These stars are so cute. They're teeny tiny, but the iridescence on them is amazing. And yeah, I highly recommend grabbing them. She's local to me, so it's really nice. I like supporting local craft companies as well. So I'm just dotting some glue all over in the sky part, and just getting them on there. It just adds a little bit of something in the background. I do put one near the little reindeer that pops up, because when it's closed there's like this open gap and I thought that doesn't make any sense. The stars would not move out of the way of this reindeer, so I decided to add one there. But just be aware that whatever you do put on that background, make sure it's not going to interfere with the mechanism popping up, because otherwise yeah, it could stop him popping up. And that's pretty much it. Like I say, I wanted to keep this quite simple just because I wanted to show you more about how to make a wiper card yourself without dies. But there are some great companies, like I say, that have already got dies out there. If that's just easier for you guys, do that too. I was really quite chuffed with this, but like I say, if you're making a scene card, which I love doing, you definitely need more. Just be aware of where your fold lines are, and happy wiping. All right, we'll see you in the next one, guys. Bye for now.